This is a podcast sponsored by the Enlightening Research. I'm Amanda Siqueira. This new episode is focused on discussing the challenge of risk assessments and adverse events. We also encourage everyone to take a look into Enlightening Research video, in which you can find a detailed discussion regarding adverse effect assessment as well. Please come here, Sarah. Thank you for being part of this team, and let's start.
It's a pleasure, Amanda.
A common mistake in clinical trials is to stop following up subjects who stopped the study drug or just assessing them for a short period after that. It is very important to count events immediately or early after the study drug discontinuation. That's why it is worth mentioning the lessons of Vioxx studies. The Meeker drug case study was based on the classic rofecoxib called by Merck Industry as Vioxx. Is it a classic example of post-approval drug withdrawal from the market? From this example, all researchers can learn from these trial mistakes and to enhance constructive collaboration among academic medicine and industry.
Great introduction, Amanda. The Vioxx, a COX-2 inhibitor, was introduced in the market in 1999, promising effectiveness and safer option to a classical non-steroid anti-inflammatory, non-selective COX-1 and 2 inhibitors for reducing the signs and symptoms of osteoarthritis, for acute pain, and to treat primary dysmenorrhea. However, further, it was detected an increment in risk of cardiovascular and stroke disease, the motivation to withdraw the drug in the entire world.
In fact, Sarah, since 1996-1997, scientists from Merck were worried about the possibility of cardiovascular adverse events related to Vioxx, due to change in the ratio of prostacyclin to thromboxane, leading to disbalance on blood flow and clotting, suggesting a possibility in thrombus formation. Then, using animal models, it was also reported that Vioxx increased the 20-hydroxytetraenoic acid, which causes blood vessels constriction in the heart and brain, resulting in increased blood clotting and consequently increasing heart attacks and strokes. Nevertheless, the first studies with Vioxx were not designed to assess cardiovascular risk and didn't have an accurate procedure to account for data and adjudication for cardiovascular outcomes. They were small studies with short follow-up periods and they included low cardiovascular risk patients and they did not have a standardized procedure to collect and adjudicate cardiovascular outcomes. Even so, Merck used similarly pooled data and reported that the drug was safe in terms of cardiovascular events in order to falsely minimize the cardiovascular risk.
Exactly, Amanda. Then the Vigor trial, the Vioxx gastrointestinal outcomes research, was designed to evaluate fewer gastrointestinal adverse effects when compared to a non-selective COX-1 and 2 inhibitor called naproxen and to treat rheumatoid arthritis. Here, naproxen avoids stomach mucus lining production when inhibiting COX-1, causing gastrointestinal side effects. It was a larger study, and cardiovascular outcomes were not assessed, and there wasn't a cardiology in data safety monitoring. During the study in November 1999, it was detected a significant enhancement of 79% in serious cardiovascular events and death in one of the treatment arms. However, the study was allowed to continue by the data safety monitoring and a subgroup analysis 1 month later was performed. Likewise, the subgroup analysis detected higher cardiovascular risk in one of the treatment arms. Even so, the study was allowed to continue until it achieved the target gastrointestinal endpoint expected by March 2000. And an analysis plan to assess cardiovascular events was created.
The study reported that rofecoxib reduced in half the risk of gastrointestinal events, but it was not more effective than naproxen to reduce rheumatoid arthritis symptoms. Also, the study detected an increased risk of myocardial infarction, but this data was obscured by the sponsor and authors when attributed the events to naproxen group. Besides, they used different data of interim analysis for gastrointestinal events and cardiovascular events. Moreover, they did not consider 3 myocardial infarction events detected in the rofecoxib group when cardiovascular events had not been counted by researchers. Likewise, they attempted to falsely reduce the risk with a post-hoc subgroup analysis according to aspirin prophylaxis indication, which demonstrated enhancement in cardiovascular risk in the two interventions. Furthermore, it was hypothesized that naproxen had a strong cardiovascular risk protection when rofecoxib didn't have it, but it was also not dangerous.
Indeed, Amanda, a deadly data detected. Then the cardiotoxicity was also detected throughout a meta-analysis, prospective studies, and database studies, and from the adenomatous prevention on Vioxx, the approved trial, when the drug was tested against placebo. Thus, rofecoxib was withdrawn from the market in 2004. Here, Amanda, this episode reinforces the need to construct trials under strict ethical policies and by using an adequate design, including statistics, in order to detect the relevant events in clinical trials. Likewise, these lessons bring to attention the necessity to have optimal post-market surveillance efforts to also detect adverse events not observed during the clinical trials.
There are several examples in the literature of post-marketed withdrawal drugs. Some of them are also related to scandals in the pharmaceutical industry due to being unethical, for instance, the Mediator trial with benfluorex and rosiglitazone trial. These cases highlight the importance of ensuring safety and reliable information and also to account for cardiovascular side effects to some interventions. Likewise, it is known that diabetes medications to be marketed need to be evaluated for cardiovascular endpoints. They cannot increase cardiovascular risk outcomes. In our field, for definitive cardiovascular trials, following regulatory agencies like FDA, sometimes it is recommended statistically extreme evidence of benefits on the selected outcomes before an early termination and considering a long follow-up study to also obtain safety data.
Brilliantly, Amanda. Important to address that even when a trial is properly conducted, the detection of a side effect can be obtained only during post-market follow-up in an accumulated real-world data setting. Ideally, throughout post-market surveillance research conducted by regulatory agents, it is possible to create a database of side effects, to detect safety issues, and to take the necessary actions when it's needed. Now, Amanda, back into the Meeker drug, there are three possibilities. Withdraw the drug from the market or compare results of trial of Meeker versus placebo and add warning label for patients with high risk, considering that the cardiovascular events can be only related to patients with high risk.
As we saw, Sada, from the example of Vioxx and its mechanism of action, here in Meeker drug, there is a possible explanation for the adverse events. Moreover, let's consider that Meeker study is not involved in unethical issues. Thus, so far, there isn't any strong evidence regarding the safety data from Meeker, and also to only attribute the serious adverse events to patients with high cardiovascular risks. Here, it is essential to better evaluate the whole data from this study and also to compare them to other studies using the same medication. The regulatory agencies must evaluate the situation, and all patients should be informed about the risk until a final decision is not made. Of course, the possible patients under more risk should be advised to not take the medicine and physicians to not prescribe it to them. Furthermore, Meeker is not a curative medication for a disease and is not claiming its use as a compassionate use. So far, to safeguard patients' lives, in our opinion, if after evaluating all these mentioned aspects, a safety profile of the drug still remains uncertain, the best choice is to not use this drug and it must be withdrawn from the market.
Exactly, Amanda. First, do no harm.
Beautiful, Sarah. Thank you for joining us and thank you all for listening.